All right, we are live, and we are four. Wait, I want to say we're five, but it's when there's four or more of us gathered together. There's whatever something. We're live.
It's a quorum.
Yes.
I only act like I'm four.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Derek. I'm new here, and yeah.
Long time no see.
Yes.
Yeah, we thought we're gonna have to call it a search party. I was seriously considering flying down to pay you a visit.
Well, you would have found me probably sleeping.
Wait, sleep. What's that? I've heard of it.
So I guess I will, since I haven't been here for so long, I guess I will catch everyone up on what's going on. I'll start with the good news first. The good news is I have a distribution deal with Manning Books now.
Sweet.
For a bunch of my screencasts. They're picking up what I currently have in my guide to writing maintainable Express.js code. And there's another 4 screencasts that I mentioned to them today that I think we should add to what they're going to be distributing for me.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's a ton of material. I've got about half of it delivered to them already. There's one screencast that I've been working on today that's like 27 minutes long, which is kind of ridiculous. But there's a couple of good breakpoints in there where I'm going to split it into 3 episodes and then record a few little blurbs in between the episodes just to make it flow a little nicer. But that's all going to be done and delivered to them before the end of the month. Along with that, I've got a new intro animation for Watch Me Code for all of my episodes now. I built that 3 or 4 weeks ago now. I haven't published any episodes with it yet, but I've been using it in the stuff that I've been recording. So it's a much shorter animation, looks nicer, has more of a Watch Me Code style to it. So I'm going to be using that moving forward, which will be nice. On the not so fun news, with my absence over the last 4 weeks, my business is kind of tanking right now, and I'm in some financial troubles again with everything that I have not been doing and all that kind of stuff, which kind of tails into why I've been gone for so long, which I want to talk about if you guys are okay with that.
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
So in the spirit of being open and honest the way that we always are, anybody that's watched this show for more than a year or so, or has paid attention to my blog for a while, knows that I've gone through minor episodes of depression in the last few years, even just a couple years ago within this show, periods of time where I'd just be down for a while. And eventually I work my way out of it. I get back into a good swing of things and life moves on and I get back to my regular routines. Well, in the last 6 months, I've just continuously sank lower and lower and lower, and things have been more and more difficult me to the point where I guess it was like 9 months ago when I started therapy, started going to see a therapist about other things initially, about my anger issues and things like that, dealing with my family and family needs and things like that. Well, about 3 months ago now, the conversations with my therapist turned into depression and how I was feeling and whether or not I was having any kind of real issues with depression. And the more we talked and the more we got into things, the more he was suggesting that I was going through an episode of depression that I couldn't seem to shake on my own. And he wanted me to get help beyond what he could do, just by talking with me and helping me work through things. So eventually, about a month and a half after that conversation, my wife finally just made the phone call for me to our family doctor and had me go in to talk with our family doctor about antidepressant medications. And after talking with them filling out their standard little questionnaire. I think it's called like a PEQ-9 or an inventory checklist or something like that. Turns out I scored extremely high on the depression checklist. There's like a score from 0 to 25 or 27 or something like that, and I scored an 18, which is extremely high. Most people, if they're in their normal state and their happy mood, even if they're having a bad day, they score maybe a 3 or a 4. So an 18 is bad. It's definitely severe depression, even if it's not getting into manic stages, which is basically the only thing that I didn't say yes to on the questionnaire was the kind of manic stages where you stay up all night for 3 or 4 days in a row and spend $10,000 and don't care about it and have sex with 1,000 people, everybody that you meet on the street and things like that.
Damn,
Which
it's so hard to score 21.
It is. You got to get
so
that 21
hard.
though.
Oh man, so you just crushed so many people's hopes and dreams. This is just like they're like, yep, check. Totally, I blow 10 grand,
a
buck.
little further, and you'll get there. A little further.
Yeah.
So we got me started on a medication called citalopram, and so this kind of all happened right at the start of the weeks where I was missing, where that was just bad timing. I was legitimately busy for those first 2 weeks. I was taking my son to summer camp, a special needs kid. This was literally his first time being away from us for more than one night, for even a whole night on his own, without me or my wife being there, or at least my grandparents, him sleeping at my grandparents' house or his grandparents' house while Joanne and I took a night off and came back the next morning, things like that. So this is his first time being away. So we were all stressed about that, getting things taken care of for him, getting that done. And then the medication starts. And this medication absolutely kicked my ass for the first 2 weeks. And I described it to you guys in an email, and I've explained it this way to both my therapist and my doctor, and they both kind of nodded in agreement that this is an accurate portrayal. And the best way to describe what the medication did to me for the first 2 weeks was like hearing stories about people that are in a car crash out in the middle of nowhere, and they have this sudden surge of heroic strength where they've broken their back or broken their neck or whatever, and they walk 3 miles to find help, and then they collapsed, and then they're in the hospital for months at a time. Things like that, which actually did happen to the sister of my best friend back in Kansas a number of years ago, close to 10 years ago now. She was in a car crash in the middle of nowhere in a field, flipped her car, went off into the field with it, broke her neck, and walked about half a mile back to the road that her car had left before collapsing right in front of an off-duty sheriff that was driving by. That strength, that desire to push forward, to know that you need to find help and safety. That's what people talk about. Like, I knew I needed to get help. I knew I couldn't just sit there or I was going to die. And so people, they push through it. Your body goes into shock. You have that superhuman strength or whatever it is. You push forward until you're in safety. And then you crash for a second time, because you've found help, so your body just gives out and you're gone. You're in the hospital for weeks, you're in therapy for months, things like that. I'm basically going through that same kind of thing right now, only it's not physical, it's entirely mental. The moment I started that medication was like the moment that I finally found the help that I needed. I had been pushing myself and pushing myself and pushing myself for so long that the moment the meds really kicked in, I crashed, and I crashed hard. I slept for, upwards of 16 hours a day for the first week. I lost 10 pounds because I couldn't eat anything. My stomach just felt horrible. I wasn't working at all. I was hardly doing anything other than sitting in front of the TV, watching Netflix and, maybe playing video games here and there, and then saving all of my energy for dealing with my family when they came home for the day, because that's really all that I could do at the time. And so it took about 2 weeks for me to get past that initial, quote unquote hospital stay, so to where I could actually start functioning again. And over the last 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks now, I've started to regain my energy levels and regain my motivation and my desire to actually get work done. And so I've recorded 3 screencasts in the last couple of weeks. I got this Manning deal up and running. I'm working on material for them, which is kind of my focus right now. And I'm getting things back to where they need to be. But the amount of time that I've been gone and away and unable to get anything done, it's been longer than just this last month that I've been on the meds. It's been more like 2 months, realistically, where I just haven't been able to get work done. And things are definitely not in a good state because of that. I'm staring at credit cards that are almost maxed out. I'm barely scraping by with my monthly income paying the bills. We're starting to cancel a lot of services and things that we don't need, but we're just luxuries because we just don't have the money for it right now. So we're making a lot of changes in order to get through the financial, difficulties that we're having right now, expecting that at some point in the future, my income will pick up again and we'll be able to pick up back to, that level of lifestyle that we've been comfortable with for so long. But we got to get rid of this credit card debt first, which I have some ideas on how I'm going to do that, but I need some of these efforts that I'm putting in right now to start paying off. The thing with Manning, some of the training stuff that I've been trying to get with some large companies, which still haven't landed yet. I've been reaching out to people to talk to people about additional consulting work, because my one major healthcare client, I literally have 12 hours per calendar quarter with them at this point. That's a 30-minute discussion in and of itself, but the end result being they cannot pay me to work anymore because the budget for the IT department was literally cut in half because the IT department has been such a giant ball of failure for the last couple of years. So they were given an ultimatum. You have no money and you have to get everything done within a year or else. And that meant cutting that meant cutting all of their consulting hours and making their employees work 60 hours a week and all kinds of just god-awful nightmare with them.
Bricks without straw. It worked well for Pharaoh.
Exactly.
So I've got a couple of things, Derek. I think everyone is holding their breath, waiting to see what John is going to say at this point. It's true. But I love you, Derek. I do. I seriously, you're like a brother to me. Of course, we disagree philosophically on depression and medication and whatnot. And I'm not going to get into a huge debate about that, because I'm glad that you're here and I'm glad that you're feeling better. And I hope that you continue to feel better and that you are able to get off the meds and figure out, a way to operate and stuff. So I'll say that. Yeah, and I'm not going to get into a whole debate about that, but I've got something that really is strongly on my heart that I'd like for you to take a look at, because I feel like it would help you, medication or not, which is to look at a couple of things. One, if there's maybe one book that I think would be extremely beneficial to you, would be Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. Really just a really good book. Okay. And the reason why it's such a good book that I think I would love to send you to a UPW or something like that, just because it is so focused on self-healing and right. Figuring out how and empowering yourself. And to some degree, I like that analogy that you used of the car and then unable to get, because I do believe that you do get into a state with depression, or I had been there before with anxiety, mm-hmm. where you can't help yourself. Now, where we'd probably differ is where you'd say that, or someone would say that, okay, you need an expert professional and medication to get you, to help you. Where I would say is that it just needs to be something that changes in your life somewhere, someone, so in the right psychology. And so I do think that you can build up that inner strength to be able to self change, right? But it still requires some kind of external event, right? It's like when I was severely, and I mean, I was to the point of, you talk about the checklist. When I was in the worst of the anxiety, I literally went to work every day and first thing I did when I went to work was I went into the toilet and I sat on the toilet and put my hand in my head and just waited for the time to tick by. And I did that for like almost 2 weeks. And when I got home from work, I went in the bathtub and I just laid in the bathtub and I waited until it was time to go to sleep. And then I tried to go to sleep. And that was my life. And I was pretty close to just losing everything. I mean, and I really mean losing everything. I couldn't read a book, couldn't do anything. And then finally, like I got an intervention. And it wasn't like, it was just like I don't know. I mean, I say it's the universe. It was meant to be, but I had listened to someone talking about overcoming anxiety, and they gave me the technique, which was pretty much an NLP technique, like a neuro linguistic programming technique. And as soon as I did that, I was good. And then I used that psychology to change a lot of the rest of my psychology. I mean, you've seen it over the years as I've overcome my fear of flying and roller coasters. I mean, you knew that, right? I wouldn't even fly for it, and now I fly everywhere.
Right.
So I know it's possible, right? That's what makes me say that. But that's why, like, if you could read that book, Awaken the Giant Within. In fact, I mean, something just like, so that you've got the hand. I mean, this is good. Like, I feel like, yes, if you're in this position and you don't have the tools and resources, you're going to have to get help from somewhere, right? And maybe it's going to be some medication to lift you out temporarily. Maybe it's going to be someone or a book or something. So that's why I'm saying, like, give yourself the tools. Like, at least look at this, like read Awaken the Giant Within. It doesn't even have to, I mean, and read some of the books related around that. Anything by Dr. Wayne Dyer is going to be really good. He's actually a PhD in psychology that is really focused on self-actualization, which is very, very strong stuff. It's all kind of related here, but I really would encourage you to just, I mean, give yourself the tools that you might as well have. These tools, like these are tools that have immensely been helpful to me. And like I said, I don't think I've really shared my story that much with the, but I was really at the point of pretty close to, I won't say suicide, but like, I don't know. Is there a way, like, do you kill yourself by just like not taking care of yourself and like, just losing the will to live? Like, like I was there. I was like, the best way I could describe it is I was looking over the abyss and I was at the edge of the abyss. Yeah. And that brought me back, and I will never fight that. Like I have the tool now that I know within me that it's never going to be a problem for me again. I mean, not that there won't be dips, and there are, and there's, and we've all been on the roller coaster,
absolutely. But and this is, I'm not a fan of medication at the first sign of difficulty by any means. We share a lot of that same philosophy. I would probably say, okay, go get the meds before you would, by all means, but the tools you're talking about and the things you're saying are things that I absolutely know I need. These are a lot of the things that my therapist and I have talked about in the last 9 months, or however long it's been since mid-September, because I know that I personally don't have good coping mechanisms, good tools to deal with, stress and difficulty. And I lashed out at my family, unfortunately, and it sucked for a really long time. And, we got through that, and there comes a point, though, that some people legitimately need medication because their body is just wired wrong. Their brain produces the wrong chemicals or doesn't produce a chemical or whatever. And I don't know if that's me permanently. I doubt it. There's likely going to be some point in the future, both my doctor and my therapist have said that I will probably end up off the medication, at some point in the future. Don't know when that'll be, and I expect that. I don't think I'm going to be the person that's on meds forever. because I don't think I need it. I think that, once this is under control for a long enough period of time, and we can see that the medication really isn't necessary anymore, then, we'll lower the medication, get me off of it, see how things go, and work with it from there.
Awesome.
A big part of why I want to talk about this on the show, especially, is just because there are a lot of people out there that are in a situation like I've been in, where, a large reason, one of the biggest reasons that I haven't been on the show with you guys in the last few weeks is not because I didn't want to be here, didn't want to get the support that I've needed from a business perspective, but because depression is the biggest asshole and liar that you can ever imagine, in terms of making you feel that no one else could ever understand what you're dealing with.
Right.
Even with people that I know have gone through serious depression, have been suicidal, have been on meds, have done everything that I'm going through now. Even with people in that I know have had this experience, I don't like talking about this stuff with other people because of the way depression lies to you, because of the way it makes you feel. And that is the absolute worst thing that I did to myself. It's been incredibly difficult for me to sit down with a guy that I pay to let me talk to him. My therapist, I pay him as a professional, let me listen to you person. It's incredibly difficult for me to begin the conversations and to start talking about the way that I am feeling and the way that I'm dealing with things, because I have an incredibly difficult time explaining it in a way that makes sense to anyone else. It's not logical. It's not something that can be expressed. It is an emotional state of chaos and confusion and just bad things all around. But for anyone else out there, especially in the entrepreneurial world, because it's an incredibly common thing for entrepreneurs, it's just the way we're wired for whatever reason. For anyone out there that is having issues, even if you're just going through a little slump and you realize that you don't have the tools to cope with it, and you don't have good coping mechanisms or whatever it is, take that first leap of faith and find the help that you need, whether it's the books that John is recommending as a good first step, or calling a therapist, or whatever the case may be. I mean, it took my wife basically saying we're done for me to start therapy, and basically her calling the doctor for me to start getting the meds so that I could start fixing my life and getting things turned around. I was turning into an absolute miserable asshole, angry all the time and lashing out at everything and just destroying my family, myself, and my business. And
you feel guilty. And you feel guilty when you do that, and it creates a downward spiral that you can't get out of. It's a death spiral, because guilt makes you respond to the guilt by being more depressed, which gives you less patience, which makes you do more of the things that you don't want to do, and then you go down. And that's why I totally agree with you. You got to figure out something that breaks the pattern, whether it be
you have to break that cycle.
And at least letting people know what's going on. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean you have to be all sad Susie, but you can tell people, hey, man, I'm not feeling it right. And that's why this group has been good. That's why I wish that you would come to the group too, honestly, is because we've all done our roller coasters, right? I mean, I don't think there's one person in this group who hasn't like been on the down, depressed, roller coaster. And, each one of us have gone through it, and we will continue to. But what's helped me a lot when I've been there has been just knowing that, like, hey, I've got some guys to share this with, and the rest of the world. but that's it is important, because you got to have something to break that pattern. And what you said about the lying is so true, is because at that point you feel like there's nothing to hope for. There's nothing to look forward to in life. In fact, a lot of times, a lot of people, the only thing that they're looking forward to is the next meal, because that's the only thing that gives them a certainty in some kind of good feeling, is that there's some food coming. Yeah. But you lose all hope, and so you don't have the perspective, and so you've got to have something to shake up that perspective. But again, that's why I'll say too, like Derek, definitely read that, but I can feed you a ton of books also that will just, because it's like having armor defense to know that because once you get so far down the spiral, man, that's when it's like it's hard to get back. But if you have the defense and you know it, and you've got the cognitive, your own psychology, that you can sort of pull yourself out of the dip before you go over the edge.
Too far down. Yeah.
Then you can really help yourself a lot. But I mean, honestly, Derek, like I would love to like start with like Awaken the Giant Within, and I've got a ton. And this is advice I would give just to anyone too, is just like, if you're struggling with any of these things, and I do agree, Derek, there is a possibility that there is definitely some people that really have something wrong with them.
Right.
It's a very, very small percent. Most people can, and even if you do, you could still find some benefit in what I'm about to say, which is fill your head, fill your brain with all of this good stuff as much as possible, right? At least you could do that. I mean, if you're going through and you have the inclination for this kind of stuff, like read stuff that makes you go like self, like Tony Robbins stuff, and read what's it, As a Man Thinketh, and read all these positive psychology things that will really make you feel empowered and help you, and you'll have that. Like if you surround yourself with that, I mean, it's so true. It's like whatever you take in, that's what you become. And so, like, taking good stuff, if you're and also cut out the bad stuff. Like, don't watch Walking Dead, or don't watch kind of crap that's like despondent and like is going to make. Don't go on Twitter and listen to millennials whine about how life is unfair, right? And don't read the liberal news that's going to make you upset at the world, right? I'm not even trying to be political here. I'm just saying, like, the stuff that's going to make you upset at the world and make you feel more despondent, cut all that shit out. Take only positive stuff in. And and maybe it's not going to, if you've got a serious chemical imbalance, okay, I'll give it. I'm not going to cure you, but it's definitely going to improve situation. Yeah. And that's going to give you the tools to help you in the future. So that's what I would say. Yeah. So I think we're actually in a pretty good amount of agreement, Derek.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty happy about this.
I just, it's funny because you're talking about this, and I mean, I don't know that I've gotten to the point of depression to where I was just, you know what, I can't get out of this on my own. But I mean, even over the last month or so, we've been talking about some of my cash flow issues, and I was pretty down just a week or so ago. And it's funny that you talk about this because, and John in particular with your solutions, or at least helps for this, because I started doing the Miracle Morning again this week. And so, I've been getting up, and I just, I listen to a book while I go for a walk in the morning, and then read my scriptures and things like that. And it's so interesting just how much of this, I'm probably not as far down the rabbit hole as you got, Derek. But for me, I think I have two thoughts on this. One was just that I think I needed to go through that, like all of the emotional down, just to get it out of my system, just to get over it. Just to say, you know what? Yeah, this really sucks, and it's okay to feel bad about it.
Yep.
And then the other thing is that in the scriptures, it's okay. Well, things are going to be hard, and then they're going to get better. And in some of these other books that I've been reading, the latest one I've been reading is called "Ego is the Enemy," and anyway, and he talks about. It's funny because that's not necessarily like a raw book, right? But it's at the same time, it's, hey, look, here are some people that went through some stuff. And here are the things that they did or didn't do that got in their way or didn't get in their way. And so, a lot of these things just put it back into my hands and, put the ball in my court and made me realize, what, there are things that I can do that will, elevate where I'm at. And so, you know, by today, I mean, I got up at 5 this morning and did my routine, and I've just been feeling really, really great. Even though my problems aren't completely resolved, I feel like there's at least light at the end of the tunnel. And I think, you know, in your situation, you know, the medication and just knowing that there's a way out, you know, helps. And so, you know, if it's medication, if it's some of these other self-help techniques, you know, yeah, just feeling like there's an answer,
Right.
that there's a solution, that you're not stuck where you are. You know, and I think that's kind of what I'm seeing, at least at this point. Your problems aren't solved by any means, but at least you know that, hey, you know, I'm in a place now where I can actually go handle this.
Yeah, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I know it's not a train.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing, you know, that it's just helpful in you know, just something I've always like really fell back on, which is that you should, you know, in any given moment, you're exactly where you need to be right now. Like, you know, whether you believe in fate or whatever, like you're exactly where you need to be, because you are developmentally, right? You know, sometimes it's like easy to judge an acorn and say, you should be a fucking tree, right? And it's like, wherever you're at in your business, in your life, in your personal development, in habits that you're trying to break or build, like it's like, you have to accept where you are. And just accept it. Like, it's okay. It's totally okay, right? It's like, even to be depressed, like, it's fine to be depressed, right? Because it's like you're fighting, when you're constantly fighting against you and you're judging yourself and you're like, you feel guilty all the time. You've got it's so debilitating on a person. But, you know, sometimes I just like, I mean, I biff it big time, and I just have to like say, hey, John, you know what? The reason why you biffed it is because you screwed up. Cool. Okay. But it's because like where you need to be is here and where you are is here. But in order to get there, you got to go through this. This is the midway point. You're at so if you never get to the midway point, you can't get to the higher point. So it's kind of good that you biffed it here. It's kind of good that you screwed up, and it's totally acceptable and okay. It's not okay to like accept that and at the level of
anything about it.
Exactly. But right now, you're exactly where you need to be in life right now. And this is, I mean, you've got flaws, you got problems, but you're on the way. And there's always a midway point on the way to wherever you're going. And you're at the midway point. And so I just try to, you know, same thing like with you're saying, Chuck, it sounds like you accepted the situation and yourself and what happened and where you're at. And that's going to make you feel a lot better, because now you can move on. But when you're kind of denying it and you're like, no, this can't be, or this I don't, or this is wrong, or this is I'm wrong, then it really you know, those are the times where you really go into a place of darkness, because you know, we're all messed up. We're all fucked up. We all screw up all the time, right? And but you know, but we have to accept ourselves, really. Like, it is such an important, like, where you're at right now. It doesn't mean you don't have motivation, doesn't mean you don't have drive, doesn't mean you don't want to change situations. But if you can't accept reality and who you are and where you are right now, and love yourself at that, I know it sounds a little weird, but you know, at that moment, then it's going to be very hard to reach any other level. But I just thought I'd throw that in there, because that's something that's been extremely powerful in my psychology. Yeah.
So there's a number of things you guys have said that I want to play off of for a moment. John, a minute ago, you talked about how, you know, sometimes people get to that point where the only thing that keeps them alive is looking forward to that next meal. And for me, you know, I've never been suicidal. It's never been anything that's crossed my mind. That's, you know, so there are two things on that checklist from my doctor: the manic stuff and the suicidal stuff that didn't get checked for me. But the things that really kept me going at the worst a few weeks ago was really, it was my kids, and it was playing video games. So, and my point in saying that is, if you're in that state, if you're at that ultimate low, and you know that you need to get out of it somehow, but you have that one thing you're looking forward to every day or every week or whatever it is, you know, no matter what it is, hang on to that. You were absolutely right, John, when you said get rid of all of the negativity in your life. I stopped checking Twitter. I stopped watching news. I stopped doing 1,000 things that were causing high levels of anxiety in me for all of those reasons. And that was one of the best decisions that I made. And that's kind of why I let my business die and I spent all my time playing video games instead, is because I found, a level of energy from playing video games that I had been missing. And I found a sense of accomplishment that I had been missing. It gave me some drive to continue on until I finally started really getting through the worst of it with the meds and started the real recovery process. But my kids and video games is kind of what pushed me through those first couple of weeks of the meds to really get me through past it. And then, Chuck, what you were saying about, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to be depressed, and it's okay to be in that situation is also absolutely true. One of the worst things about depression is when you get down low enough, you don't even feel sad anymore. You just
numb.
Yeah, just absolutely numb. And the only emotion that you can feel is this sense of emptiness, that there is nothing there and nothing worth it, nothing to do, nothing. And that's when it's the absolute worst. That's beyond sadness and beyond despair. It's nothing. And it's incredibly debilitating because you just don't care about anything anymore. And I've dealt with that level in the past in my life when I was in middle school and high school, to the point where, I stopped brushing my teeth because I didn't care. For like 5 years, I would take a shower maybe once every week because I didn't care. I'd wear the same clothes multiple days in a row because I didn't care. That I wasn't at that level of absolute nothingness this time around, but I got close.
Yeah, it's apathy.
I mean, yeah, it's absolute apathy. Just there is no energy at all. And so hanging on to video games and having that sensation of accomplishment and the at some points the adrenaline rush of the intensity of video games was important for me because it made me feel human again for at least brief periods of time. And then spending time with my kids when they would come home for the day and seeing their smiling faces would be about the only level of emotion that I could feel beyond just the despair of depression. But what Chuck was saying about accepting it is something that I've advocated for a long time. The whole self-care thing, and being able to say, you know what, I'm in a bad spot right now. This has been really difficult. I need to take a break and recover. To take a day off, to take a week off, even a month if you really need it, in order to recover and get through it. And I've done that in the last couple of years. I've done that a few times where I would take a week off and just allow myself to recover and then get back to it. And just wasn't able to get back to it this time around and had to find help beyond myself. And for anybody out there, for the people listening to this, I think a good resource, if you're struggling, or if you know somebody that's struggling, or if you think somebody might be struggling with motivation and energy levels and possibly sinking into depression, check out osmihelp.org. It's run by Ed Finkler. They're a nonprofit organization, 501(c) or 501 whatever it is that they are. It's an organization that I've donated a lot of money to in the past because they're doing, frankly, some really amazing work with mental illness and technology and the workplace. And they do a lot of conference talks at various software developer conferences around the country, and have a lot of really good resources out there. osmihelp.org. Highly recommend checking that out if you're needing some place to go to just start educating yourself on all of this stuff.
With
there was one other thing I wanted to say that I don't remember what it was now.
I'll interject while you're thinking that. One of the things what you said with the with the relaxing a little bit, playing video games or whatever it is, or having the thing, is a lot of it's just taking the pressure off too, right? And it's like we've talked about before. I think one of my thoughts for the week was it's all gravy, and that's like such a we had a guy in the Simple Programmer group that was debating medications and was seriously struggling with depression. I actually went on did a Skype call, like some consulting, like with him. And one of the things I told him, because he was like, man, I'm like 37 years old. All these other people have accomplishments in life. And he had just stacks of all this pressure on him, like, like all these expectations and stuff. And I was like, dude, look, like, give it your best shot, right? Like, let's do what you can, let's go to coding boot camp or whatever. Let's, whatever you can do, let's do that. But at the end of the day, right? Like we're all kind of just monkeys in suits, like pretending like we're doing shit that matters, because it doesn't really matter, right? It's like, we just got to like eat and live and farm, right? Right. But what I told him is so what? So let's say that your whole thing, you never make it as a software developer, or you lose everything or whatever. You're 70 years old, right? You walk into a fucking bar with your friends and you have a couple of beers and you have a slice of pizza. And that's the best that life can ever get anyway, right? That's like, you'll never lose that capacity, right? So it's kind of like the pressure, if you can have that vision to like take that pressure off yourself and realize that all this shit doesn't really matter. Like, nothing really, really bad is going to happen to you, right? I mean, yes, you can have consequences. You can lose your business, your job and shit, but you're never going to lose that capacity to go into a restaurant with a couple of buddies, have a couple of laughs, have a good time over some beers, and have a couple of slices of pizza. Like, that's you know what I mean? That's, if you think about your life and you think about the times where you actually felt the most joy and the most happiness in your life, it's times like that. It's those things. And as a human being, you never lose that capacity. Like, it doesn't require a lot of money. It doesn't require a lot of success. It doesn't require a lot of fame. You could do that, whatever your situation is, those are the things that, and it's the same thing. Like you said, a lot of people say, well, on my deathbed or whatever, I wish I would have spent more time with family. And it's because you remember that those are the moments. And that's the one thing that you never lose. And so that kind of helps to take the pressure off. That's kind of like everything we're doing, all this fun stuff we're doing with entrepreneurship. And I'm speaking to entrepreneurs that are following us now. It's great. It's awesome. I hope you're successful. I hope we're all successful. But if the shit hits the fan, and it frequently will, and you lose it all, and you could, and I could lose it all. Hell, I mean, anything could happen, right? I don't know what's going to happen. You're not going to lose that capacity for joy that is built within you, and it's so simple to trigger. It's just those little things. It's when you say, I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and I need this to be happy, that you've created all this expectation. So if you can, like, pressure relief valve and let some of that pressure off, and you can just kind of like realize that, okay, hey, I'm going to give it my best, right? When I'm fucking running this race, I'm hitting it hard, but whatever happens, happens. Who cares? I'm not like my life, my outcome. It doesn't matter. I still will. It's all gravy. This is all just monkeys in suits. We're just having fun. We're just playing a game, right? When the game's over, the game's over. And that's, it's just a way, like, anything you can do to take that pressure off. Like you said, if it's just like, hey, you know what? If I have to let my business crash to the ground, I hope that you can build the psychological tools to not have that happen. But if that's what it takes in order for you to take the pressure valve off, that you can always rebuild. It's like, fuck, the Legos got knocked over. Well, we can start over and rebuild the Black Knight's castle. It's fine.
Right. All right, so I remembered what I was going to say before. There's two things which kind of tail into each other. So I'm on the meds now. I'm talking to my therapist on a regular basis. I've talked with my wife about how I feel and what's going on. And I guess kind of backing up half a step there, one of the biggest lies that my brain was telling me was that my wife didn't understand and couldn't understand and wasn't giving me the support that I needed. And it wasn't until literally Tuesday of this week that I realized the only reason she didn't understand and couldn't provide the support I needed is because I wasn't talking to her.
Yeah.
There was literally no way for her to know that I felt like I was in the recovery room after a car crash because I had never told her that. And so I had that conversation with her, and it was incredibly difficult. I was literally shaking as I had that conversation with her because it was so difficult to talk about it for me on Tuesday. It was only the first time I had said that, used that analogy, was in that email to you guys. You know, writing an email is easy. Actually saying it out loud to my wife was incredibly difficult. But I also had that conversation with my therapist, and I explained that to him, and I explained a situation to him that happened last week where I was in the absolute fight or flight mode. My anxiety was skyrocketing, and I almost left the house. I almost walked out and got in my car and drove away with the wife and kids at home, not having any clue what was going on with me. And so when I described that to my therapist, he talked about the road to recovery, essentially, that the medication I'm on is not an instant fix, but it's giving me the tools I need, the mental, physiological tools that I need in order to climb back out of the depression. And while it is a huge boost in the right direction, I still have to work through these things. But where I am right now, if you think of depression as a giant dip, this big U, if I'm charting myself on this big U going back up toward the top, still pretty low down here, but I'm starting to climb back out. And the first thing that happens when you start climbing back out is you actually get an increase in energy level. The more you climb up, the more energized you get to continue to climb up. But when you're still really far down there in the depression cycles, and you start getting this energy, well, that ends up translating into anxiety in a lot of cases, which is something that I've never really had to deal with in my life. And I've always been the person that can look at anxiety and just laugh at it and go on about my business. And now anxiety is like a real thing. Like, you know, not to the level that John was describing earlier about laying in the bathtub and sitting on the toilet for hours on end, but the fight or flight level of anxiety where I couldn't be in the room. I couldn't be at home. It just absolute, you know, the abyss of anxiety, jump off or run away, you know, fight or flight levels of anxiety. But I'm getting through that a little easier. I talked with my wife about that as well and explained and apologized profusely for the incident where I almost walked out. She didn't even realize that I had almost walked out because I couldn't explain how I was feeling. They just weren't words for it at the time. But there's, you know, things in relationships get difficult because you have this person that loves you and wants to support you, but they don't know how because you can't tell them, especially in the mode, in the moment, in the situation. And so one of the things that we're doing is having, you know, key phrases that I will use when I end up in that situation again, because I expect it to happen again. I don't want it to, but it probably will. So the key phrase for me is a pretty simple one. You know, I'm freaking out right now. You know, if that phrase comes out of my mouth in the middle of an argument, that's you know the sign to my wife that I need space. I need some time by myself. I need, you know, whether it's a few minutes or an hour or whatever it is, but I can't deal with the situation right now because my anxiety level is too high, and I'm going to end up doing something that I regret later, and I don't want to do that.
I got a one-up for you. All right. I love that concept. Take it, instead of saying I'm freaking out right now, modify it to be something like a lizard shitting on our sofa. Like yeah, something if you do something ridiculous, this is funny. What will happen is it's called a pattern interrupt, and it'll change your state like instantly and your wife's state because it's ridiculous, right? And you can't say something ridiculous like that intensity, like you're like, man, I'm so, and then you're like, and then you remember that you're supposed to say a lion just licked my balls. then you're like, and then it changes your state, like, and it changes the other person's state. So like figure out something ridiculous, and then it also reminds you that everything that's going on is ridiculous because your mind is lying to you, because what you're thinking and what you're saying and what you're feeling right now is not reality. It's your mind lying to you. And so like, yeah, pick something ridiculous. It'll be fun, right? And you can have multiple ones of these. I do it actually to myself. I have a few of them where I say something when I'm sitting in traffic.
Right.
And I'm like, one of them I say is that like these are just empty shells, or like, you know, I do a couple of funny ones that just like it breaks you out of that state. But yeah,
pattern interrupts like that are definitely a good tool. So the crazy thing about this, and this is weird to say, but the anxiety levels that I am seeing right now are a good thing. It's very strange to say that, because knowing my capacity for anxiety right now means that I have the mental energy, the psychological energy, the emotional energy to actually experience that anxiety, which means I also have the capacity to feel happiness and joy and contentedness and sadness and all these other things that have been missing for so long. So it's like, okay, this sucks because I'm feeling incredibly anxious right now. But at the same time, it's like, oh, that actually is progress. That's better than being unable to feel anything at all.
And I got one more for you on that. So you'll like this one too. This is actually from actual psychology studies that you can find. Your wife probably is familiar with the studies as well, which is that they found that the physiologically, anxiety and excitement are exactly the same in the body. It's only the mind that makes the differentiation between the two. So this was something that's really helpful to a lot of people, like with stage fright or something like that, is if you're feeling anxiety, right? It's exactly the same. If you looked at your adrenaline glands, if I checked your blood levels to see how your endocrine system, there we go. Endocrine system was producing thyroid hormone and adrenaline, and we looked at your pulse and all of these things, your breathing, everything physiologically would be exactly the same between if you're anxiety, have it in a state of anxiety from fear or whatever it was, stage fright, or pressure, or excitement, right? Like getting on a roller coaster and wanting to get on the roller coaster. And so if you make that switch, anytime you feel that you're feeling anxiety, you just say, what I'm feeling in my body is actually excitement, and you make that choice, then it can move you in that direction, because it's the same exact feeling, and you can't control that feeling, but you can control the interpretation of the feeling. So that's one just like little, and that's like, this is legit science, you know, from psychological studies where they've done multiple studies, and they've you know, measured this. So
yeah, and I do that with public speaking when I get on stage at conferences and whatnot. I learned that years ago, that I can turn that anxiety energy into the nervous energy, or the excited energy to get up on stage and do a better job. And you know, at any given conference where I'm speaking, I walk out on stage, and for the first 5 minutes, you hear my voice wavering and you see my hand shaking from that level of anxiety and nervousness. And so what I figured out for me is I need to start talking in order to make that anxiety subside. But I don't want to tell people anything important or try to sound. I don't want to tell people anything important or try to start the presentation while I'm in that state, because I just end up looking like I'm really nervous, and it makes people not respond well. So what I started doing before every one of my talks is starting the conversation by thanking the organizers and the volunteers for the conference. That way I can take the attention away from me. I can shift the attention to people that really deserve the attention, but I can also start talking and get into the rhythm and the flow of being up there and get that nervous energy to subside. And then after I do that, you know, not only did I make the organizers feel great and make the audience feel great, but I made myself feel great, and I can do an awesome job with the presentation. Yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to say is, as I'm working my way out of this dip and back up to, you know, what my normal state is supposed to be for an emotional level. What I'm seeing in my business is anxiety inducing. And I said a moment ago that that's a good thing because I recognize the issues and the problems. And I think that's also incredibly important because I'm not looking at what is legitimately a bad situation and saying, it's fine. It's like that meme where the dog is sitting in the burning house, drinking a cup of coffee saying, this is fine. No, this is not fine. If you're in that situation, if you're in the burning house, whatever your situation may be, and you're saying this is fine, that is a sign of depression. That is a sign of a manic spike in a serious level of depression. That was one of the things that my therapist pointed out to me, which is why he started recommending, talking to my doctor, is because on any given day, I could look at Watch Me Code and my business in general, and whatever the level of my business was, whether it was doing well that month or doing shit that month, didn't matter. I would look at my business and I would either panic or jump for joy and say it's fine, completely incongruous with the actual state of the business. And, right. it might change, from hour to hour in that given day. Like, oh, I just got a new subscriber. The world is great. Everything is fine. Business is going to be awesome. And then an hour later, crap, I got a new subscriber, but that's only 2 subscribers today. The world is falling apart and my business is failing. Well, these two things don't match up. And that level of incongruent, emotional response to things was one of the signs that my therapist saw in me to get me pushed down the road of getting the additional help. So now looking at my business and seeing, oh shit, I'm sitting in a burning room. I need to put out these fires. I need to do something. I need to, rebuild the crumbling foundation. Whatever analogy you want to use, I look at that and yeah, I see anxiety, but that's an appropriate response to the state of things right now. And that is what I should be feeling. And now I need to turn that anxiety into that motivation and that drive to improve things and move forward. And that's where, the continued medication, the therapy, the support of my wife, the, canceling services that we don't need, that all those kinds of things are the next steps in me, pushing through that and rebuilding things and actually getting it taken care of.
Agreed. Awesome.
So I guess final words for me is, in the recovery process, it's like physical therapy. You can push yourself so far on a given day and then you're done. Don't try to push yourself through a full 8 hours of work at the beginning of your recovery process. Maybe you'll get an hour done today. Maybe you'll get 10 minutes done today. Maybe you'll respond to an email and then you're emotionally spent. But the next day, maybe you'll get to respond to 2 emails and then 5 emails. And then you'll actually do something meaningful for an hour the day after that. And then you'll spend 2 hours, getting something updated. Take it in steps. Push yourself to your limit so that you can improve your limit, so that you can increase your capacity, but don't expect it to be instantaneous. People going through physical therapy don't instantly stand up and walk when the therapist says to do so. They spend months rebuilding their muscles and stretching and learning how to balance and learning how to walk and learning how to fall and get up again. Expect it to take a while if you're at the point where I was, where the medication really is a necessity to get you through it. And with that, I'm done for the day. I've done some work this morning on screencasts and mentally prepared myself for this conversation, because I really, truly wanted to have this conversation, and I'm incredibly thankful for you guys sitting here and talking with me and listening to it, and all the things that John is saying about the building up the tool sets that you need is absolutely the truth and incredibly important. But I'm wiped out. I'm probably going to fall asleep for the next 2 hours before I have to go pick up my son and take him to his physical therapy.
I do want to say one thing, Derek, that just like a suggestion on the business side, that I don't know, maybe you guys should weigh into to see what you think. But what's going through my mind right now that, and I said this before, and a lot of people don't like this answer in our audience, but I don't give a shit. But is that I think it's time to get a regular job for a while. I feel like if you do that, like I don't feel like it's giving up on entrepreneurship, and a lot of people I know in our audience are upset by me saying that and feel like that's the case. But I feel like if you have enough stability that's going to help you, well, I mean, for multiple reasons. One, just the day-to-day stability that you just go in, you do what you're supposed to do. You don't have to think and manage that. You just do the job, and that will give you accomplishment and just a smooth, a platform to launch from. And two, it'll give you steady income to be able to pay off these bills. And you're someone who could make a lot of money, obviously highly paid in a regular job. So if you did that for like a year or so or two and got those things paid off, and you could still, and that will help you also get your business. I mean, you can still do the business on the side and get that going and get that back to, because then you can come off of that and you can give it another try, and you can take all the lessons you've learned and be a little bit more even kilter. I feel like that would be the best thing for you at this point. And I don't feel like it's giving up on entrepreneurship, and I don't feel like it's like saying, it just to me makes sense.
So I'll validate everything you just said by saying my therapist said the exact same thing for the exact same reasons.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
So
it makes sense. Stability and routine.
Yeah, it's on my list of things that I need to start looking at. I've been trying to avoid that by looking for, training gigs and consulting work that can give me that kind of daily structure and whatnot. And the stuff with Manning is helping on that front. I've got, I'm basically busy through the end of July with the Manning stuff, but it's not going to dig me out of the hole as quickly as getting an actual job. So I'm very likely going to end up going down that path in the next month or two.
And I think likely there's probably someone in this audience too that, it's kind of funny. We're talking about this on a temporary basis, but I'm sure that any team would love to have you even for just a year to come in and work for them. So, if anyone out there might want to reach out to Derek, if you're okay with that and see if there's an opportunity. So
love that. Just hit me up, Twitter, or you know what? Not Twitter. That's a bad idea because I don't check Twitter. Just in my website, derekbailey.com, you'll find my about page and my contact info, derekbailey.com or derek@mutedsolutions.com or derekbailey@gmail.com. I have like 50 email addresses that all go to the
basically just Derek at anything you come up with.
Derek or Derek Bailey at whatever you can think of, and it's probably me.
Yeah. Besides, when I joined the show, we were talking, or deliberately not talking about when someone was going to quit their job. So we could go back to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. All right, guys. I really do need to go from just I'm drained perspective, but also we got to go pick up my wife's car.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Good to see you, man.
Love you guys.
Make sure you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
If you ever need to call me, just give me a fucking call, dude. All right.
I will. Thanks.
All right. Should we do our thoughts, or does anyone else have anything? I'm glad to see Derek back.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because he's talking about all this stuff, and I'm definitely not as severe as he is, but some of this stuff is stuff that I've been feeling. So it's been kind of interesting. The other day, just to get your opinion real quick on this, because things have been really tight, as you know, and I've talked about this on the past shows, but my wife actually came in yesterday and asked if she needed to go out and get a job, which kind of was a punch in the gut for me. And so I think I'm probably going to start looking for contracts again next week. But there's so much to do in the business, and I'm trying to figure out how to balance all of that. So any ideas on that really quick would probably be helpful.
I hate to say to go down another road that will pull you from the business. If you can cut expenses as much as possible and figure out how to make this work, even if it's going to be uncomfortable for a while, where you're going to have a very tight budget. To me, that makes the most sense, because you could give it 6 months and see if you can get the growth where you can start accumulating some savings and whatnot. I mean, you're not in dire straits like Derek with maxed out credit cards. At least I'm
pretty
assuming.
close.
Oh, you are? Okay. Well, then maybe it does make sense. The reason why I hesitant to say like go down the contract road is because it sort of really detracts from your main business, and it doesn't really, like Derek's a little bit different because he's in it doing screencasts in the code every day, and so him doing will actually help him more. I mean, how bad are you debt wise? I guess that's the real question.
Well, my credit rating is pretty much shot. Otherwise, I'd probably be able to get a loan and cover some of this.
Well,
but
how much do you owe is what I'm asking.
How much do I owe?
Right.
On everything that I owe, excluding.
Well, besides your house, like credit card debt. How much is your credit card debt?
Credit cards, probably a few thousand. We have some medical bills. I owe the state some tax money. We're talking probably $10,000-$15,000 for all of the rest of it. That's not the house.
That's not yeah. What if you give it 6 months? What if you're like, can you? Yeah. Go ahead.
You're in a you're in a pretty different position. Like Derek's basically in a position where, like he's still sort of in that trying to get traction phase, and he's making a few $1,000s a month, and you're like, I mean, unless things have completely fallen off a cliff, you're like, well into 6 figures in terms of revenue.
Yes, and I'm waiting for some sponsorship, basically to get paid. I mean, I have the invoices out. We're talking. I mean, that's the thing that's really frustrating about it is I probably have about $15,000 in invoices outstanding right now for sponsorships.
Right.
And I can't spend IOUs, and so I'm not the government. But yeah, it's just anyway.
I mean, it's a cash flow issue more than Derek has an income problem.
No, I
you
totally
have a
agree.
Cash flow problem, and that's the
thing that gets me too when you say that is that, like I could go out and start looking for contracts next week, and then have these couple of sponsorships get paid, and then it's a non-issue for another handful of weeks.
Yeah, and then but then you're committed to these contracts.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, that sets you back. Honestly, like John says, like cutting. I mean, honestly, $10,000 or $15,000 in debt. My wife and I we were making about $80,000 together, and we paid off like $40,000 in 1 year.
Yeah, the real issue is just that I don't have anything coming in.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's not a lot of debt.
Yeah, but the last couple of months have been really painful, and so yeah, I just looked at my wife and said, yeah, we're going to make a list of the stuff we're paying. We're going to prioritize it. And yeah, I just looked at her and said, we're not doing anything extra until. And so I'm probably not going to go to Podcast Movement, even though I already have a ticket to the conference. And I'm probably not going to go do a couple of other things that I was looking at doing this year. And we're just going to get this nailed down.
Yeah. I mean, what you're doing with I think that the most important thing that you're doing right now is the funnel that you're building for your sponsorships. And so everything you can throw at that, like that's going to be a 3 to 6 month ramp up.
Yeah.
For you to really see the fruits of that. But once that's there, you're not going to be having these problems anymore unless you let your spending, if you do the what Dave Ramsey calls doc-itis, where your lifestyle grows, which I don't think you're going to do, but
no.
That's really the main danger. But otherwise, I don't really see this being a problem in 3 to 6 months. Yeah. If you stay focused.
Yeah, the issue is just I need some cash flow now, because I mean I'm cutting people's hours and doing all kinds of other things just to to manage cash flow. So,
well, when does the next injection of cash flow come in? Like realistically, like you've got outstanding invoices. Are they overdue invoices? Do you need to get on the phone? Okay, then then just get on the phone and like be a collection person. Like
The other thing that you could consider would be, I wouldn't be looking for contracting, but if you could get like somebody to pay you $10,000 for 2 days of time, that's very different, right? If you had a couple of those come in, those are like Slack adjusters. The problem is if you go the contracting route, then you're like basically marrying someone for a period of 3 to 6 months, but if you can get a lump sum of money for a small amount of time with a very limited commitment scope, then that's totally worth doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. If you can, knuckle down and get through it, I think you'll be fine. I agree with everything Josh said, and it is a different situation than Derek's. It's just, but get on the phone and just like harass these people to get you paid. That's unfortunate. You'll have to eventually figure out how to not get into those situations. Like what we've done now at Simple Programmer, I just started doing this. I got sick of I got sick of people not paying me, and so what we pretty much do now is we have everyone pay up front. Like you don't see shit. Like I don't care who you are. You're fucking IBM. You're paying up front. Otherwise, we're just not going to deal with you, because it's just not worth it.
Yeah, and that's what I do. So, and that's the follow-up I send out too, is essentially, hey, look, I'd really like to get your sponsorship in the show. I think there's some good timing coming up because of this and that. And, so, as soon as we get that invoice paid, then we can start. I do have one long-running sponsor, and it's funny because you said IBM. IBM acquired their company. Yeah. And they just switched everything over to IBM's marketing, and that's the holdup on that particular payment, is that the one hand isn't talking to the other, and so I'm just having some trouble finding the right person to talk to say, hey, look, you got to pay this, or I'm going to stop your sponsorship, and then that may be what it comes down to in another week or two. But they've been around for long enough to where I'm just like, you know what, guys, I've given you some goodwill. I've run your sponsor ads longer than you paid for. But yeah.
All right. Well, sounds like you know what you got to do. I mean, if you get down, you can always give it, like I said, I would put a time limit on this too, 6 months maybe. Can you make it through 6 months? And then, I mean, if at the end of 6 months, this stuff isn't panning out and you're further in debt rather than out of debt, then it's time to really start thinking about some other possible choices. Then it's time to consider something else. But at this point, like, it just like, let this, what you're doing with the sponsorship is the thing. I mean, if that doesn't work, I hate to be like that, but if that doesn't work, if creating this pipeline and getting that sponsorship doesn't work, then your whole business model doesn't work. I would say, right? That's like, you can almost say like, then you have to do something else, because that is like the bread and butter. So that's why I would give it a long enough time and give it your full effort, because what would suck is this. This would be the worst suck, is if you go and you get some contract jobs and you spend half time, and it's not just going to be half time, because see, again, difference between you and Derek. Derek is actively coding in Java. Well, when he's not playing Call of Duty, he's actively coding in JavaScript. He's a lot more fresh on JavaScript and stuff. You're not actively coding very much. So if you do take a contract job, you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to relearn. You're going to have to rebring, like, you're going to spend a lot of time training yourself. So it's not like you could just like, Derek could take a JavaScript job and just go, and he wouldn't have to like study up anything. But that's, I'm assuming that's not you. And so what would suck the worst would be is if you, essentially like take a bunch of these contract jobs, and that's getting you by or getting some of the debt paid down. And like over the next 6 months or 7 months, you just don't have enough time to really work on the business stuff, on the sponsorship. So you never give it a chance to bear fruit. And you end up at the end of that 6 months in a worse situation business wise, but and having to rely on these contracts. That would be in my mind the worst that could happen. So so give this your all, and you know, that's what I'd recommend.
The other thing would be I don't get the sense you're doing this, but just make sure that with the sponsorship stuff you don't prematurely hand it off.
Yeah.
This is a lesson that I have learned painfully over the last few months. But yeah, just I mean, this is mission critical for you. So make sure that you want to be building the processes and everything, but make sure that it's working right before you hand it off, because you need to have your finger on the pulse of it and be seeing the little things that aren't working. And if you're going to notice if there's an email or something where people just stop replying, or if like you're going to notice that, and someone else who's not looking to pay their bills with this money, they're not going to notice it. So
yep.
But
all right, shall we do our thoughts for the day?
Yeah.
We do have quick news. We did get the books out.
Yes, so the books are published there. Well, I guess we could say it. They're on Amazon now, but if you want to pay full price for them, go for it. But they're going to be on sale next week. So
for the launch. Yep.
You can wait. Yep. But they're out there. We sold one copy. At some poor sap is going to be kicking himself.
Oh, I'm pretty sure we sold more than one copy. Looking at the sales rank, I think it's a lagging indicator.
Okay. Well, I'm just looking at the dashboard. It's showing John bought one yesterday. I'm waiting till next week to buy one on launch day, and then I'm gonna buy one for my wife too, because she needs it.
Oh, and the Kindle, But what was funny? We got to get the two versions joined together. But it's funny that they send me proofs that will be here on Monday, but my copy of the print version, will be here today. So there you go. Great space.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. We should probably do thoughts because we're running pretty late.
Yeah, we are running long.
I think mine is going to be, I think I already talked about this, but the idea of backups and redundancy on the mission critical. So what I did about a month ago, I realized that the biggest risk in our whole project here was that July 19th comes and we don't have a freaking Kindle book to deliver. Right. So we hired two different designers, and they worked in parallel on it. And it literally went down to the last minute yesterday. Like, I needed to publish it. I wanted to have it published yesterday. At 3:00 yesterday, 2:30 yesterday, John and I thought the world was ending pretty much, and that everything was broken. And it was looking like we were going to have to go with our backup person. But since I had the backup, I was able to compare what we were getting from both. So basically, the book had a bunch of errors, and there was navigation problems and all this stuff. And because I had two versions of it, I was able to compare them, and I realized that the same glitches were present in both. And it was because the way that Amazon generates the previews that we were looking at, they were not what was going to be in the store. Like, it's crazy. There's literally, I told John, it's the Nancy Pelosi testing approach. We have to publish the book to find out what's in it. Because there's no way to know what the book is going to look like unless you publish it and download it from the store. And so pretty much what everybody says is, like, you have to publish it about 3 to 5 days ahead of time so that you can actually buy it and have time to publish updates and stuff if you need to. But we literally published it, and every problem we were looking at went away. I was like, holy cow, this is crazy. So, but we would never have published it if we hadn't had the backup version. we probably would have wasted a couple more days going back and forth with the designer trying to fix things that weren't actually a problem. So, and then just having the backup gave me a lot of, I felt like I had options and gave me a lot of, I was pretty stressed out, but I would have been freaked if I hadn't had that. So,
yeah. Mine would be that, you know what, like, none of this shit matters. Like, you gotta always, like,
you
again,
say that now.
Well, no, I mean, like,
Oh man.
Like, we're having fun. We're playing a game. Like, life is a game. Life is not that fucking serious. And a lot of shit. I'm not saying that bad stuff can't happen, but the worst of the worst stuff at any moment is really not that bad. Like, yeah, and I'm saying this as I'm cursing myself. But what I mean by that is, it's like, you just got to remind yourself that, like, okay, so what if I lost my job? All right, fine. You know, so what? Then I'd have to go and find another job. Or so what if I lost my business, or if this thing happened to me, or my bank account got drained, or I had to start over again. Might be fun to start over again, right? Well, you know, maybe it'd be fun to go through the witness protection program and build a new life. I mean, you know, I'm joking, but I'm also not, because honestly, it's like we thread all of these things. And, you know, one thing like going through the crazy kind of high discipline shit that I do has taught me, you know, eating one meal a day and running 40 miles a week and all this stuff. And at one point living so frugally that it was ridiculous, is that, like, man, like you like most of the stuff that we fear we don't even need to fear, because it's not that big of a deal. I just interviewed a guy on my YouTube channel. He's called The Homeless Educator. He's a homeless guy that has a YouTube channel and teaches people how to get their degrees online. And he did that by choice. He's choosing to live to be able to do his dream, what he wants to do in this world. He's choosing to take live on $250 a month, right? To get $190 of food stamps and use that and sleep in a sleeping bag near Starbucks, or I forget how he's got his setup, but basically to subsist on $250 a month while creating a ton of stuff on the internet, creating YouTube videos, doing interviews, right? All this stuff. And it just made me realize that it's like, you know what? I mean, that's like we've created all this shit, and it's great. I mean, it's and we get stressed out, and it's good, and it's good that we're not just totally apathetic like Dirk was saying, but at the same time, none of this shit really matters that much. I mean, what is the worst that's going to happen to you, right? I mean, especially if you, again, I'm saying this from the perspective of I'll actually use the word privilege. I'm privileged to live in the U.S., right? To live in a country where, and I will acknowledge that amount of privilege, because, and the reason why I'm going to acknowledge that is because pretty much here, even if you fuck up completely, like, you're going to get government assistance. Like however bad you think it is, it's really not that bad. You'll probably, like, if you're at the worst level of poverty in the US and getting government assistance, you're going to be better than 90% of the planet. So what I'm saying is that, like, all of this stuff does not matter so much. Like, do your best, give it your best shot, give it your best run, you know. And even like yesterday, like, man, if we would have screwed up this launch, if we never got the Kindle version or whatever, I mean, it would have been upsetting. We would have been upset. We would have been stressed out. But hey, shit happens. What are you going to do? We're going to cry about it, going to, like, you know, go and just go into depression about it, or you're just going to get over it and just say, hey, this is what happened, and this is life. So yeah, so take the pressure off, realize that it's all gravy. It's all gravy, baby. So
I'm laughing because I'm imagining me and John, like, failing to launch this book and figuring out, like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to Simple Programmer.
Yeah. I think my thought, you know, kind of mirrors a lot of this, and some of the things that we talked about today. One of the things that I've been putting into my schedule is to just take some time to code.
Yeah.
And I wrote this big long rant. I think I emailed it to you guys.
Bless you.
And I sent it to some friends on Facebook and stuff. And anyway, I realized that, you know, it was one of those days where I was just like, I freaking hate my life. You know, I don't want to work. I hate doing what I'm doing. And what it really came down to, you know, we didn't have a lot of time to go into a lot of this, but the folks that were writing or doing the podcast show notes essentially didn't get anything released on time for a week.
Yeah.
At least the editing is happening properly now. And those are getting done on time. Of course, Eric is just awesome and takes care of all that for me. But anyway, so it was super frustrating. And then you know, I had some other things going on, and I was worried about the money and everything else. And anyway, so I was talking to some folks, and I was just like, you know what? I really miss coding, and I really want to do it. And so I basically had a couple people tell me, look, you know, that kind of self-care, you know, where you just you do something that you want to do or enjoy doing. You know, for Derek, it was video games, you know, and for me, it's fiddling around with Ionic and building mobile apps is what I've been playing with. And, you know, just taking that time is important. And so, you know, even if you feel like you have a million other things to do, I mean, take a little bit of time to do the thing that you really enjoy or the thing you really wish you could do. You know, in my case, it doesn't cost me anything except for the electricity to run my computer. But in the end, I feel a lot better about things in the way that they're going because of some of the stuff that's related to this, just because I took an hour and fiddled around with building mobile apps. So I just want to encourage people, you know, if I get the platform for a minute, sometimes self-care is go sleep, and sometimes self-care is go watch a movie or relax, and sometimes self-care is this is something that I really wish I could do, and so you just take the time out and do it.
I love that. That's good. I think there's a book that's on my list called The Power of Play. I was listening to a guest on James Altucher's podcast. I forget his name now. He's someone that you'd recognize. He was the guy that did the book launch for Tim Ferriss that burned himself out. Chris, I can't remember. But anyway, what you're saying really is right in line with that. All right, guys. We did it. There were 4 of us today, so
yay! We had a quorum and a half.
All right.
All right.
Next week will be my last week that I will be here before I will be off to across the great ocean. So, see you guys.
All righty. Bye.